What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Minnesota Twins franchise. My name is MrHurriicane. Today we are going to recap the off-season stream for the first year of the Twins franchise, along with recapping a move I made after the stream was over and the first spring training game. So a lot to get to in this video as we begin here during the off-season live stream. This was my first big off-season that wasn't for a football team, so this was definitely new to me, and there were a lot of learning experiences. The stream was pretty rough. Entering the off-season, there were still some things I had to learn, and I know a lot more now for next off-season, but there were a lot of things in this off-season I wish I had done differently. Still, the roster we ended up with is a team that I like. And I like how our offseason ended up. I just don't like how we necessarily got there, and I wish I handled a few things differently. We'll get to that when the time comes. But the first order of business was to sim through the postseason, and we ended up with a Cleveland Indians, Los Angeles Dodgers World Series. Cleveland, of course, won our division. They are the team we are chasing in the Central, but the Dodgers were just too much for them in the World Series, as they won 4-2. And we played a small role in helping the Dodgers get this far as we traded them Brian Dozier during the season for Yadier Alvarez, and that was the final piece to the puzzle that helped the Dodgers claim a World Series victory. We also saw the Tigers make the playoffs, so two teams from the Central did make it, but the Tigers lost in the one-game wildcard series to Toronto, and there's a look at the bracket and how things all ended up. From there, we made our way to November and the 2017 offseason. We, of course, had a lot of contracts to take care of for our roster, but also our coaching staff. And this was a chance for us to really turn things over in the coaching staff so that we can start rebuilding this team. Here are the retirements from 2017, as we did not have any from our organization. Lots of longtime veterans have now retired, including Bartolo Colon, Carlos Beltran. Tim Tebow has now retired, so I couldn't go and trade for him like so many wanted me to. Ichiro Suzuki retires, and 3 players made it to the Hall of Fame: Beltran, Suzuki, and Jimmy Rollins, the longtime Philadelphia Philly. So with a couple openings on our coaching staff, I obviously wanted to work on building up a stronger overall staff, because that plays a big part in morale. Plus, they offer ratings boosts. Every single coach does, pluses and negatives. And we didn't have a very good staff last year, and that affected the morale for a lot of different players. Many of them want those top-tier organizations to help them develop, and if they don't have that expectation met, well, they're not going to play as well. Morale goes down. So I had to entertain the idea of firing Paul Molitor after back-to-back 100-loss seasons. And he doesn't help us out very much when it comes to attributes. So I began the search for new coaches, and here is Josh Bullock, who has a +2 home run per 9, K per 9. I had to get a good pitching coach. That's a huge need in our organization. Then Tom McCullum at third base, +2 to fielding, +3 arm accuracy would help out our defense a good bit. And then I figured, why not just clean house? We could pretty much start over with our coaching staff and build up a much better team if we have the right coaches in place. So I gave a contract offer to Mark Silva at hitting coach. Between that, I also had to worry about the contracts for all of our players, and there is a lot to go through when you're talking baseball. Organizations have a lot of players, and almost everybody on your team has to get a new contract once the year is over. There are some exceptions, but not many. Some of these are easy, like your lower level minor leaguers who want about 60, 70K for 1 year, those renewable deals that are before arbitration. But I also considered that a lot of players had higher demands for money, and if we meet those or exceed those expectations, they may play better. So when it came to certain players like Yadier Alvarez, I was more than willing to go at or above the offer to try and get morale up so they can develop faster and play better. I did want to give a contract to Hector Santiago, but not to Danny Santana. He wanted a bit more than I wanted to offer. And then for Byron Buxton, I decided to offer him a contract that would take him through his renewable and arbitration periods and to his unrestricted free agency point. So a 4-year deal would take him there. And I made a contract offer worth $19 million over 4 years. After an exciting year from Eddie Rosario, I obviously wanted to keep him around. Then we sim forward a little bit, and we get a bunch of contracts accepted. Jose Barrios and many others. Now, I offered some long-term deals, like 2, 3, sometimes 4 years, when I didn't really have to, and the risk there is that once they get a year or two into their contract, they may no longer like the amount of money that they're making, and morale could then go down. So I will definitely do better about that next year. When it came to Mark Silva, we were outbid by the Yankees, so we had to go and fix that. I wanted that power and contact boost. It was interesting seeing Joe Madden hit the open market, but he was commanding a bit more money than I wanted to spend. But still, I didn't think we had the right manager in place. I want to first rebuild this coaching staff, so I fired Paul Molitor and began the search for a new manager. Now, we did lose some money by firing coaches under contract, but I'm willing to eat the cost so we can get a better coaching staff and build from within, because that's how this organization is going to be regardless. We don't have a huge budget. We're not going to have a huge budget. So I made a contract offer to Henry Wright, who would make over $4 million a year, so less than Madden, and still give us nice boost. Here you can see all of the coaches I gave offers to as we get to November 9th. And we get Tom McCullum to accept the offer for third base coach. We then get Mark Silva as our hitting coach, so already doing a lot better. But this took us into the first days of free agency, and I didn't realize it. So we could have made offers on some of these players, but I wouldn't have. Andrew McCutchen does go to the Chicago White Sox, so that's the major news here. Our division gets a little bit tougher with him going to Chicago. But otherwise, these are players I would not have offered on, but I wish I had not simmed as far as I did. Again, mistakes that I wish I didn't make, but ultimately we'll hopefully learn from them for a more important offseason next year. So I began to look at the players who were available, and there weren't a lot of enticing names, but I still had a couple roles on the team I wanted to fill so we can be better in this next season. Here you see the progress of some of these contracts that I was giving out to a variety of players. We got through most of them by this point. Still had some work to do. The one big name left available was Michael Brantley, who had interest obviously from Cleveland. And you'll see the decision that he made here in a little bit. When it came to free agents I wanted to offer to, I started with Jared Dyson, a very speedy contact hitting outfielder. I love a player like him, so I made a 1-year contract offer to the 33-year-old. I then had interest in Hisashi Iwakuma as a veteran member of the rotation. However, his overall is really boosted by his walk per 9, his stamina, whereas hit per 9, K per 9, home run per 9 are not great, so that wasn't going to be a deal I wanted to make. I was excited though to see Brandon Phillips hit the market, a very good second baseman. He's 36 years old now, but still has a couple good years left, I believe. I then found Johnny Sandoval, who was a minor leaguer that his previous team no longer wanted. And we see Michael Brantley ends up leaving the AL Central and is heading out to New York to join the Yankees. So that was good news for us. However, he is still in the American League. We got the contract accepted from Brandon Phillips to become our everyday second baseman and fill that hole left by Brian Dozier in that trade. I then wanted to go look for a backup catcher because I let Chris Jimenez go, so I offered a contract to veteran catcher 36-year-old Brian Pena. We don't have a lot of great catchers in our organization right now, so I had to make that move. I then upped my offer to Byron Buxton to try and get him to sign, as he was our last unsigned player, and that was enough to get him to agree. $5 million a year until he hits free agency in 4 seasons. Now this section here is where I made another mistake. I was worried about the Rule 5 draft, and I wasn't entirely sure how it worked, but I began adding a lot of players to our 40-man roster that would not have been eligible and are players that I would not normally want on the 40-man right now anyway, so they are now taking up 40-man spots, whereas I could have saved those. It's not really going to hurt us bad this year, but it was an annoying mistake that I wish I had known not to make before. So there are some rookies on the 40-man that I wish weren't, but I'm not going to try sending them down and try to get through waivers. So a few more veterans I'd interest in. Yunel Escobar, who could play shortstop for us, another good contact hitter. That was what I was looking for. I want to get more balance in our lineup. Jorge Polanco did not have a very good season last year, so I had to find a starting shortstop. and we'll see that position battle through spring training. I then made an offer to Ryan Roberts, who does not have great potential, but I still saw some skills I liked. I also offered a deal here to John Jay to be a backup outfielder for us, kind of replace that Danny Santana role. I then offered to veteran pitcher Lance Lynn, as I still wanted to get a veteran in our rotation for this year. We had contracts accepted from Wilhelmsen and Ryan Roberts, and also from John Jay and Yunel Escobar. However, when it came to Lance Lynn, he is going to the Red Sox for 1 year instead. So I went to the free agent pool again and offered to Jesse Chavez, who is 34 years old, but still seems to have enough ability to hold down a spot in the starting rotation. He was 13-7 last year with a 3.15 ERA, so I was more than happy to make him an offer, and he ultimately accepted. We were still waiting, however, to actually have a manager on the team. Henry Wright was sitting on this offer for a while. And then we made it to the Rule 5 draft, and here it goes. Nobody got selected. We did not have a pick because the 40-man roster was already full. And then about a week past winter meetings beginning, we finally get accepted from Henry Wright to become our manager. We also have a big trade going down as the Mariners had acquired George Springer, but then trade him to the Cubs for Addison Russell and Miguel Montero. Starting to see some big names go other places. I thought it was time for us to make a trade, as I wanted to get Phil Hughes on the move and get rid of that contract in the process. Now, he has 2 years left on his deal, but we hadn't made it to the regular season yet, so it still said 3. And here is where I kind of accidentally traded him, although it was a deal I had interest in. I was trying to check on the players that were offered, and then checking them out, I turned out to like the trade, but it was kind of a mistake at first. Here was the main player I liked, DJ Stewart, the 24-year-old from Florida who had a nice skill set, B potential. We also acquired pitcher Andrew Faulkner and center fielder Josh Hart. The main deal there, though, was just getting that salary off the books. And now we'll transition into what happened after the stream was over. During the stream, we saw that one of our draft picks had been released, and that was Sandy Bunty. It wasn't my decision, it just happened. The roster must have been full, and he got released. This happened for a few other rookies, and rather than gather up all these rookies that were not on the teams they should have been, including one who was the second pick of the second round, I decided that we would trade back to get Sandy Bunty, but I would not just go and take all these rookies that these other teams shouldn't have released in the first place. So we don't have any of the rookies that you may have saw me pick up. Those are back on their original teams now, the ones that I could figure out anyway from the draft video, episode 7. I didn't want to exploit the game in that way, and I wanted to get my player back, so I thought it was only fair to give the other players back as well. So Sandy Bunty back on the team, and along with our entire draft class in full. Now, Maxwell Fowler is on the Major League roster at the moment. You will see him a bit in spring training. He was the number 1 pick at 18 years old. He's already a 73 overall with A potential. I don't think he'll make the Major League roster on day 1, but I want to see what he can do at least in spring training, and we'll go from there. But at 18 years old, he's already one of the top 10 prospects in Major League Baseball. We now have 3 in the top 50, and our potential at starting pitcher is looking very nice right now with Fowler, Alvarez, Barrios, Gonzalez, along with Fernando Romero. Here I decided to try making another trade. We have a lot of first basemen that I like, especially with the draft pick Willie Ordonez, and I like Kenny Vargas. A player who hasn't worked out great for us is Byung-Ho Park, who hits home runs, but not a very good average. I decided to put a deal together with him and minor league pitcher Alex Wimmers, who has a lot of potential but is pretty old, and go out to find a catcher that I think could be a starter one day. And I offered this to the Tampa Bay Rays for Justin O'Connor, a 26-year-old catcher with B potential, and we made the deal. So we have a very intriguing catcher now in our organization. O'Connor is an awesome defensive catcher. If we can increase his hitting, I think we'll have a big league starter in a couple years when Castro's deal is up. He has a very strong arm right now. Contact and power are both good foundations at the moment. If we can increase those numbers a bit, I'm excited to see what O'Connor can become. Here's our other catcher in the minor leagues that could be a starter one day, maybe. John Ryan Murphy, also 26 years old. Pretty good contact and defense, but I like O'Connor's upside. And our starting catcher is, of course, Jason Castro, who hits good power against righties, but that's really his only strength as a hitter, as he only hit .234 for us last season. Here are the first basemen we now have, and there are other players that could play first base if we needed to, like Miguel Sano or Daniel Palka, so I think that we're all right there. Here's a look at our current lineup as we enter spring training, and this will probably change between now and the regular season, but I love that we added more contact into our lineup. We were really inconsistent last year. We had to hit the long ball to produce. We didn't have very many averages over 250 or 260, and I'm hoping that getting Phillips and Escobar on the team help us hit for more contact so we can be overall more productive. We still have all the power hitters, but we now can hopefully be a bit more consistent with these veteran additions. Here are the pitchers at the moment, and we'll see a lot of them over the course of spring training. Our bullpen is now going to be led by Buddy Boshears, who spent all of last year down at AAA, and now he'll get a chance along with Trevor May and Wilhelmson's there, Jake Reed as well. Many of you are probably wondering about one of our top prospects, Nick Gordon. I just don't think he's ready quite yet. Next year, I think he'll be at spring training. But this year, I'll start him at AAA. We'll see how he continues to develop. He still needs to find that strength his game can lean on right now. A lot of his ratings are pretty good, not great. Hoping he develops well over the course of this season. And now we'll begin the first spring training game, as we will have a couple episodes focusing on the spring. But we'll open up here with Jose Barrios on the mound, who finished so strong for us in the month of September. I figured why not let him lead the way here in spring training. Well, to Kevin Kiermaier out the gate, a lot of close takes here, and ultimately Kiermaier walks on a high fastball. Despite allowing the leadoff batter to reach, that would not be a big issue as we get the ground ball hit to Brandon Phillips as he teams up with Yunel Escobar to help turn this 4-6-3 double play. Both veterans are in line to start unless something happens this spring with Jorge Polanco. He didn't perform that well for us at the majors last year, and his time in the minors wasn't that great either. This is a really big year for Jorge Polanco regardless. Now in the second inning, a misplaced pitch here by Barrios that gets smashed the other way against the shift, putting a runner on second base. Next up is Brad Miller, and with an 0-2 count, Barrios gives up the long ball to deep right field. You can't afford to miss your spot with those changeups because that's what happens. Let's go to some Twins batting now, as I have Daniel Palka in line to be our starting DH after becoming Rookie of the Month in September and having a great time at the majors last year. There he flies out. And we'll go back to Barrios now after allowing that 2-run home run here in the third inning, now keeping the changeup down, getting the miss. Then with a full count, a soft ground ball, and here is Miguel Sano finishing off the third inning. Despite allowing the home run, Barrios did go 5 innings in this outing and only allowed 2 runs and 4 hits. Here is Brandon Phillips, who I have down in the order right now, but could jump up quite a bit if I want to put him in the 2 spot perhaps instead of Joe Mauer. Here he drives one up the middle and has the speed to beat out the throw, so he's aboard in his first spring at bat in Minnesota. So Yunel Escobar follows. He rips this into right field, getting underneath it, and that is a lazy fly ball. Twins offense a little slow to get going here against Chris Archer, as Buxton pulls it onto short, and that is a line out to end the inning. Archer went 3 innings, only allowing 1 hit in the process. We did get to see one of their top prospects, Brent Honeywell, who was a player I considered trading Brian Dozier for. Here is the 23-year-old as he leaves a pitch over the middle, and that's driven to right center by Jason Castro for a single. Again, we'll go back here to Byron Buxton, as that is left over the middle and driven a long way to center, but is caught out in center field. After Barrios left the game, we put in Steven Gonzalez, our top left-handed pitching prospect, as he gets the line drive hit to Yunel Escobar. He makes the nice defensive play. And here with one down, this was my favorite at-bat for Gonzalez. Circle change gets called, then the fastball on the inside, followed by a filthy knuckle curveball that gets the strikeout swinging. We'll head on to the bottom of the 9th inning now as we were down 5-0, but Kenny Vargas looked to change that as he sends this the other way, and out of here we finally get on the board. Vargas has really impressed me. He will likely be on the bench to begin the season. He'll play some DH, maybe some first base when Mauer needs a break. Next up, Jorge Polanco the other way. That is awesome to see. I really want to see Polanco turn things around and become our starting shortstop. Next we go to Daniel Palka, who gets ahead in the count, but then it gets evened up, and he'll go the other way, hitting this to left field. The Twins waiting until the final inning, but at least getting something going. After the 2 runners advance after an out, here is a high fly ball from Rosario to deep right. It won't leave, but it will advance the runners. Jorge Polanco tags up, heads home, and he is safe. As the Twins make it a 5-2 game, but are down to their final out. Here is Yunel Escobar with a line drive to center, and that is caught. As the Rays hand us a loss in our first game down in Florida for spring training. It was fun to see, though, a lot of the new faces on the team and just to get the team back on the field. And we'll spend some time going through some spring training games and taking a look at various players, especially young players trying to impress. A lot of these young pitchers will spotlight, including Maxwell Fowler, but I think Fowler will begin down in the minors as I want to develop him before he's ready to become a starter. We still have a lot of other pitching prospects I want to take a good look at as well, including Alvarez, Barrios, Gonzalez. So we'll get that all sorted out, but I think our staff at least has potential, and we'll see how much better this team looks in spring training. The offseason might have been a little messy, but we drastically increased the quality of our coaching staff, and now that's helping a lot of morale for various players. We have 2 new contact hitters in Phillips and Escobar. I think that helps our lineup tremendously. And I think as a team we're in a good position to improve after last season. And it's next off season where maybe we make some splashes. We'll have a lot of money available. We'll have Mauer's contract done, Santana's contract done. We already traded Hughes. So this offseason was a good learning experience, but next year is a very important one for us to get this team on the right track. So thank you all for watching. Hope you're enjoying the Twins franchise. Please leave your feedback down below in the comment section. Hit that like button and subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss upcoming uploads, and I will see you all later. Have a great day.